Disclaimer.
The thoughts and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily the views of Tash, Becky, or Be Your Best You podcast.
Hey there, lovely people. Welcome to Be Your Best You with Tash and Becky, your go-to hangout for all things spiritual, subconscious, and downright magical. We're here to sprinkle a little mystical wisdom into your everyday life and help you level up your reality.
Picture this as your cosmic coffee date, where we chat about the unseen world, blend in some psychology vibes, and stir up the subconscious magic. Get ready to be the queen of your own reality, live a life that lights you up, and have a blast doing it.
So grab your latte or your tea and let's dive into another episode of Be Your Best You, where the mystical meets the mundane and your best life awaits.
Cheers to creating magic together.
Let's do this.
Hey guys, can we ask you a favour?
Can we ask, if you haven't already, please make sure that you're following us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you can get updated with all the latest episodes every week when they come out. You never know, it might just be the thing that you need to hear at that time. Also, don't forget you can watch us on YouTube, so make sure you head over there and subscribe to us there.
And share with all your friends.
Thanks, guys.
Hi!
Welcome back to another episode of Be Your Best You with Tash.
I'm Becky, the guest edition.
And today we have on the show the amazing Rosa Hope. She is an PhD astrophysicist and physicist, and also a mystic and QHHT practitioner.
Yeah.
So you can imagine we're having a really, really interesting conversation here. We are bringing the science to the spirituality. We're dispelling some myths about quantum physics and what it says about manifestation. And Rosa's going to give us her view on, as a scientist and a mystic, how she sees the process of manifestation and the nature of consciousness and who we are. So, yeah, enjoy. Today we have on the show Rosa. Rosa, it's so nice to have you on.
Hi,
Welcome.
Rosa.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to get to chat with you all. You are a delight. So.
Oh, thank you. Right, so I'm super excited for this episode because everybody listening knows I love the science. I started off with the science and I appreciate the science and how science and spirituality can really kind of like come together, and they're one and the same. They're saying the same thing. So Rosa is a proper scientist. And today we're going to dig into really how science and spirituality kind of cross over and just intertwine. And so I'm really excited to dig in. But first, before we do that, Rosa, could you just tell everybody a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I am a PhD astrophysicist. I'm still active in the field, but I'm also a spiritual guide and teacher. So I'm kind of all of it together. I've been interested in mysticism probably since I was 11 or 12. But interestingly, I've been in astrophysics for less time, but that's what I have the PhD in, right? But yeah, so right now my practice is really focused on helping people with integration more than anything else, because I've been, I got this major download that was pretty much saying our work is here. Our work is here. We're not on planet Earth by accident. We are not incarnated by accident. And so that's kind of the direction my practice took. But what is kind of fun about my story and why I was interested in chatting with Tash and Becky is that my journey to become a transpersonal hypnotist, I'm a QHHT practitioner too, happened in tandem with my astrophysics PhD. It all happened at the same time, like sandwiched together. So that's a kind of interesting story. Needless to say, I have had a foot in both worlds for as long as I can remember. I have a lot of scientific and technical women in my ancestry and in my family. And so in a sense, I'm continuing that tradition while also being too woo for the skeptics, I guess.
I love that. That's awesome. So I'm always really curious to talk to people about their childhood and how, because like you said, you've been into the mysticism since you were about 11. Tell us a little bit more about your childhood and how that kind of played a part.
Sure. Well, okay. So this is kind of, in a sense, this is the story of how I became a physicist and how I became part of the woo crew, you know. So as a child, I was really captivated by stories of the paranormal and supernatural. So I checked out, I have this funny story about how when I was little, my mom would take us to the library and she'd let us check out like a stack of books, like 8 or 10 books at a time. And I felt abundant, you know, like coming home with this big stack of books. And what I would do, she wouldn't really check what they were, but what I'd do is I'd find these books on ghosts and ESP and aliens, and I would sandwich them between my other books in the hope that she would not notice that I was getting into this strange stuff. But when I was about 11 or 12, you know, the cat got out of the bag eventually because she's like, what is this? You know, I grew up in the Bible Belt in the United States. You know, my family was Christian, but so academic. It's like, well, what does that really mean? My mom was like open-minded, but she was also careful because some of these things like delved into witchcraft and stuff like that. And she just wanted, it's her kid, you know, she wanted to be careful. But when I was 12, I got a deck of tarot cards from, y'all are going to love this. It was from a British girls magazine that you could only buy at the special import store. So it was in this plastic sleeve with this deck of tarot, like, hey girls, check out. And it was like just it wasn't even the real major arcana, but it was like the teenage girls version of just the major arcana. And I was like, what is this? You know, so I got it. And I remember playing with these tarot cards and kind of figuring it out. But it like stopped being a game really quickly. I would do readings like for fun about boys or, you know, what are 12-year-old girls interested in? But yeah, I do a reading on like a relationship or like there's this boy I want to date or something like that. And then it would tell me things where I was like, oh, what do you mean he's like, doesn't know what he's doing? What do you mean he's gonna break my heart? You know?
La 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 la.
Right. Yes, exactly. And I got to about 8th grade. So I think I was 13 at the time. So I'd only been using them for a year or two when I got like a real deck that was like major and minor arcana and had been using that and learning it and became a bit of an adept. But the problem, it was too accurate. It was like too on the nose. And in a sense, it was true divination. I don't use the cards in that way anymore. But as a young person, I just wanted to know what was going to happen, right? And using it in a divinatory way, and then actually getting this very detailed information back about how a relationship was going to go or how a friendship was going to go, got to be too much for me. And I was like, this is wrecking my journey. Because when you know ahead of time that something is going to turn into a flaming train wreck, it like sucks all the fun out of it now.
Yeah. Not cool.
Yeah. So right. So even as a 13-year-old, I got the message and I was like, I'm putting these away.
Wow.
And I did. So, and I did for some time. And even so, though, I was practicing, I'm not sure I would call myself Wiccan, but definitely pagan, like earth-centered practices, working with the moon and moon energy and learning how to set intention and learning a little about ritual. I've learned over the years, I have friends that are true like ceremonialists, and that is their thing. It's not mine. So I got bored with all the knickknacks after a while. And I was like, okay, this isn't for me either. But ultimately, why was I looking at all this stuff? Because at the same time, I was taking calculus, I was taking physics, I was taking world religions. I have always just been an academic in that way. I love learning. And there were no limits around what was interesting, really. So it's like I'm also like a classically trained singer. I have been dancing my whole life. It's like I've done all this other stuff too. I'm wide open and I love learning everything that I can. And being interested in like the technical and physical side of the world, like chemistry and physics, was not fundamentally different to me then learning about religious and spiritual practices and metaphysics. It's all part of what is available to us. And I have always just been hungry for it. So in a sense, it's like both paths have always been true in a way. But I think I had a lot of ego work to do. And also like some of it is shadow work, but what it really was about was clearing the channel of myself. I had a lot of work of that type to do, like my internal housekeeping and like getting this in order before I could understand the role that these different pursuits were going to play in my life and how I show up for others. So that's like a super abbreviated version. I could give you the dirty details, but it's like my childhood was really about just this thirst for knowledge. In my 20s, I had like my tower moment where like my whole life burned down to nothing. And I was like, oh no, what do we do? You know, and that a lot of people have spiritual awakenings that start there. It starts when you have like your tower moment, and then you have to build from scratch. And it gives you a chance though to get out of your own way, because when you have nothing to lose, you can finally say yes to the thing you've been stopping yourself from saying yes to. So that was the beginning of me taking my sort of spiritual, metaphysical, esoteric interests and transforming them into a way of life, and then ultimately into a way of serving others. But that's a long story by itself.
No, well, that's really cool. That's like such a great insight, because the reason we ask is we speak to obviously so many people in the spiritual esoteric world now, and we all have the same kind of childhood stories, the same backgrounds, you know, like why were we interested in that stuff? But we find ourselves drawn to watching, you know, ghost stuff or mediumship or tarot cards, and it's like why us? Why do those kids? Why aren't they interested? And then it kind of branches off from there, and because we're all unique, aren't we? And we all have our different like soul interests, like soul gifts and stuff. So yeah, it's just really fascinating to hear, isn't it? Yeah.
But like the one thing I kind of want to put in here, especially, well, I don't know how many skeptics are like listening to this, but even at such a young age, none. Oh boy. Like even, but even at like a really young age, as a pubescent girl, it wasn't lost on me that even though I couldn't explain how tarot worked, it worked. And that should give every skeptic the heebie-jeebies, because come on, because like you could try to explain it away through like Jungian psychology and archetypes and like our brains making connections and stuff. But I would argue that there are so many cards in the deck that are so distinct in their symbolism that it's impossible to just say this is pure chaos that I'm turning into order, when it works again and again and again and again, and it's right. It stops being possible for coincidence or just like my own sort of like brain connections to explain that, unless the explanation is that I'm the psychic, right?
Yeah.
You know, so, right. So it's like one way or the other, the skeptics aren't going to, or maybe skeptics the wrong word, the rote materialists are not going to know how to handle it.
Yeah.
You know?
And that, you know, hits the nail on the head. That's how I kind of came into this journey, like a healthy skeptic, I would say. But every time I would have things like that. So I don't use tarot, but I had oracle cards, and they're less distinctive than tarot. Nevertheless, there were certain things that I would ask where the card that came up, I'm like, that is not a coincidence. It would be the words written down would be exactly the answer to the question I would have. And I would see it happen again and again. And I'm thinking, as a scientist, as a scientific mind, you can't ignore these facts. You can't. The problem is that the materialists won't give it enough of a chance to be able to see that happening, because, you know, and that's the I say problem, it's not a problem, it doesn't matter, each to their own. But it was just, that's what I found throughout this whole journey with everything, and not just cards, but just with everything. You keep seeing the same things, like past life regressions, isn't it? You hear the same stories, you hear the same end of life like crossover stories, what they see, and links in with near-death experiences, and
Oh, and
all
you
the
know that the SC gives a lot of the same advice all the time through
Yes.
like totally different people that have never even met,
100%. And if I could count, if I had money for the amount of times the SC says she knows what to do, I'm like, yeah, because we do, like, everybody knows. And then if you ask them what is it, what do you know, they've got the answer right there. It's just brilliant, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. See, it's fun to talk to you about that a little bit because, I have those moments all the time where it's like she already knows, and I'm like, I need you to say it for the recording.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that she can hear it later.
I know, that's so true. That, like, in her voice, like, please
Yes.
tell her. Yeah.
Yes. Say it anyway, please.
Yeah.
For the
exactly.
people in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you then, because you said it was like an interesting story, how did you find QHHT? How did you get to that?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So what's funny is that I found the modality before I knew anything about Dolores Cannon.
Uh-huh.
So I will sort of avoid the nitty gritty. But essentially there was a death very close to me. And although I was having PTSD from it,
Mm-hmm.
and I had been to therapy, I'm all about therapy. I think it really plays an important role, especially when what we need is either space holding or practical advice. There's different kinds of counseling and therapy, but I think there's absolutely a role for that. However, it's very intellectual in a lot of ways, and it doesn't move into the other aspects of self. So cognitively, I totally had put it to bed. I understood everything. I knew it wasn't my fault, blah, blah, blah. So why was I still having symptoms? And these weren't symptoms that were like, oh, I have trouble sleeping at night. It's like I was dissociating when I was at work. So it was a problem. It was affecting my ability to function. And so this was right when I was starting my PhD. And I was like, I need to really show up in this moment to like learn what I need to learn to successfully do my degree program, right? So very meat and potatoes, like I need to fix a problem. And I was in California at the time for grad school, and I was like, I'll try anything. So I just kind of went online and was like, who can help with like PTSD? Who's out there? Santa Cruz, California is like the woo capital of America. So I knew that someone would have something.
Yeah.
And I literally found this mountain man in the Santa Cruz Mountains who had like a dozen modalities. He like had every certification you could think of. And I was like, well, he'll have something. So I got in touch with him, went up to his cabin, like in the mountains.
Wow.
And just sat down and talked to him. I had no idea what he would do. But what I wanted was for him to decide out of all this stuff he knew all about, what seemed the most appropriate for me, what my needs were, etc. So I was saying, you're the expert in the healing stuff. Do your thing. And he decided to do transpersonal hypnosis with me. It was not rote QHHT as I've now trained under it and I know what it is. Very, very similar pathway. He had kind of taken his own spin on it. I had no idea what was happening. I had never used a hypnotist before. Like, I just went in saying, I trust you. We had a conversation. I did trust him. I was like, he is really here with a heart of service. I know he's going to try to help. But needless to say, we went down. The session lasted a little less than 2 hours, and a lot happened, and I was aware of everything that happened. It was very visceral, and I learned a lot. But coming out of it, I never had another symptom.
Wow.
My PTSD symptoms were resolved in one session.
Wow.
And I had a moment after this, because of course I gave it a little time to breathe, because I'm like, well, what if it's like a week from now and then I have trouble again or something? Never had another problem. So it was probably within a month of that session that I was like, if this is that effective in one session, it should be healthcare.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's not healthcare, it's not covered by anybody's insurance, but also nobody knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
When we hear about hypnotism, we think about cluck like a chicken.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's so powerful though. It's such a powerful tool to help people heal. And, like long story short, what was going on with me was that I'm sure y'all have heard about entity attachments and stuff like that. What had happened is that I had made one for myself that was like a little guilt baby that I was holding and nurturing for myself, because I felt that if I wasn't feeling that or holding that, it would mean something bad about me. So even though cognitively I had put it all to rest and was like, I do not feel guilt, I was still nurturing this thing. And through this process, I was able to, with his help, of course, like he was very much the grounding and space holding and navigation for this. With his help, we were able to see and uncover all of this stuff and clear it and essentially send it into the light, this thing I had made. And so it was helping me to let it go. And once I had let it go, I was clear, of that particular issue. I mean, everyone's got baggage, but it's like that issue was resolved.
Yeah.
So it really didn't take very much time. Once I realized that it had actually worked and it wasn't that my problems weren't coming back, I got really curious. I looked at his certifications and I was like, well, what kind of hypnosis was that? He was certified in QHHT. And I was like, well, what the heck is that? And so I went and learned about QHHT and was like, wow, that's very powerful. I want to study that. I didn't know anything about Dolores Cannon. And if y'all know anything about her, there's a reason they call it the Dolores Cannon rabbit hole.
Oh my God,
yeah. Right. But I went into this blind because I had this moment where I'm going, well, not everyone's going to be comfortable with Mountain Man in the cabin. If I want to help other people with this, I should just train in it. Because I've always had this kind of thing where it's like, well, if no one else is really doing it, I'll just do it. It's like not a big deal. So I just started training level 1 QHHT, didn't know nothing about Dolores Cannon. And me and my husband are watching we're like watching the online course, like in our living room. And both of us are just like,
who is this lady? This little grandma.
Yeah, this little like Midwestern blue-haired grandma lady talking about, I mean, you understand level 1 is mostly hardcore metaphysics. Like the actual training in the modality is only one fraction of the whole thing. It's really about trying to, this is my take, right? My take is that what she was really trying to do was make sure that we had an effective framework for understanding how the method works.
Yeah.
And so most of the training's actually that. It's this like metaphysical, my head cracked wide open. and you have to realize, this is someone who has spent their whole life reading about ghosts and ESP and like remote viewing. And so it's like, I wasn't a noob, like I had been exposed to many of these concepts, but like, it's funny. So the first book of hers I read was Between Death and Life.
Me too.
Which is, it's about, it's about what's happening between human lives. So if you're going from one human life to another one, it's kind of like, here's what keeps coming back in these sessions from people, what's going on in that space. And so much of what she wrote, like, opened my heart. It was like something I'd said to other people, something I had known intuitively or tried to talk to my husband about. There's all this stuff that I had just kind of had inside of me that reading it on the page from this old lady who had she was already passed over, and the fact that she had written about this, hearing it from other people's mouths. Again, it's like, how can this be a coincidence? These are words I have said. This is a concept I have tried to explain to other people. And here it is in this book.
Wow.
And then I got into some of her other work about ETs, and I was like, I got to put this down. I couldn't hang in there for the time of my life. But that's sort of my advice to people diving into the Dolores Cannon rabbit hole. Like, if it feels like too much, just close the book and rest, just give yourself some time.
100%.
Does it get very heavy, does it?
Yeah.
Or...
It's like, I've done that many times. So I haven't read her ET ones, actually, because they never really, I just never felt cool to them. But I did dive into the convoluted universe ones. And then, like, you do have to just put that down for a little bit and just, I'll come back to it.
Yeah, it's just conceptually heavy. So, like,
Mhm.
I have a friend who
Mm.
told me when she was reading Convoluted Universe, she felt like it took her forever because she'd read a page and then be like, that's all I can do today. You know, and then, like, yeah. So that's such a thing. But needless to say, love Dolores Cannon. I have a picture of her like right here on my wall. She, it's like she's a part of my life. She's a part of who I am in a way. And like also she was so grounded.
Yeah.
And that is something about her that I really respect and feel that I embody in myself in some ways, which is that like my roots run deep, yet here I am, neck deep in the woo industry and everything too. But it's like you can be both. And in fact, that grounding I think is really important for some people. Some people need help with that. They need the assistance of someone who can serve as like a lightning rod in a way to like get that energy grounded so that it's not getting like stuck or weird or dissociative or any of those things. It's like trying to do it all together, right?
Yeah.
But no, I love her so much for that. I have a picture of her and I have a picture of Ram Dass together. And Ram Dass is like the loving guy, like give yourself grace, be patient with yourself. It's not a race. And then Dolores is like, y'all need to get your act together yesterday.
So true.
And some days I need her to that push behind you, right? And some days I need him. I need to be held, and like be patient with me, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they're great. They're amazing.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. So that being said, so now, so is that what you do now in terms of the spiritual coaching side? Is it QHHT that you do, or have you developed your own kind of take on it? Do you do other things?
Yeah, that's a great question. So these are offerings. Everyone is kind of multidimensional, right? So it's like I have a couple different things that I do. For a while, I was just focusing on my practice. I wanted to make level 2. I was seeing a lot of clients. And, that work was really formative for me to understand what I am in the sense of like, what is my function in the collective?
Mm-hmm.
And I do still offer QHHT. As you know, it's an in-person process. So the people are either driving or flying in. It's a bit of an investment. It's one of those things that I'm happy to hold that space for people. It's not the primary focus of my practice any longer, but especially with clients who need that deep work or have a problem, they are like really getting in their own way. It's extremely effective. So I like to have it as a tool in my toolbox.
Yeah.
Not everybody needs that depth of work, especially if they've been at this for a while.
And not everyone's ready as well.
That too.
Yeah, because I find QHHT session is absolutely a calling, I think. I think like for the client, that wants it, I do think you get called to it, and it's not for everyone. Yeah.
That's right. It's a profound initiation if you haven't done it before. And what you're saying is probably the core of how I think about talking to people about it, because it is not a process you want to persuade someone into at all. They know if that's how they want to approach their big work, and they know in their heart or in their gut if you are the one to do it with them. So in a sense, it's impossible to market. I can tell people about it, but ultimately it's like when I see who comes to work with me, it is always exactly as it should be. It is always the right time and the right person, and the stuff they're contending with always it acts as a mirror to stuff I've been thinking about. Like it's really
I've got goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like the same for me, honestly.
Right. It's deeply synchronistic, but because of that, it has forced me to kind of let it go in a way where I'm like, this is something I offer. It is not something I purposefully am trying to like magnetize people into, because I find that it doesn't make any difference. I got off Instagram for 2 years and got the same number of requests and clients as I did when I was on Instagram every day.
So did I. I lost my
It don't matter.
It doesn't. They'll find you.
It don't matter. Yeah. So that being said, love it. It's such a loving space. I am so honored by any time I get to spend with the SC. It's very deep, very loving. Boy, you know when you've made that connection because you can feel it in your body. The temperature in the room changes. Like it is
Yeah.
very palpable when the client gets there. So I do like, it's like I honor it as a modality. It is something that is very precious and that I have a lot of gratitude that I've gotten to do with people because I have changed and been transformed as the facilitator. And that's one of the great gifts of doing this work. The focus of my practice more so now is a lot more, I would say, meat and potatoes. Like it's very boots on the ground integration work. Because I am so grounded, I'm very good at holding that space for people and helping people find a way to transform their practice into how they live all the time. I think this is, well, and a lot of different people need this work. So it's best known really in the psychedelic community because people go use plant medicines, get their head cracked wide open, and they don't know what to do with it. So integration work is very vital in those moments so that people can come back grounded and continue to function because you don't want to leave people adrift. And so integration work has really been pioneered in that community because of how necessary it is, since it's really unpredictable the experience users are going to have when they engage with these plant medicines. It can go anywhere from total bliss to having to face generational trauma they never even knew about.
Yeah.
So having support in that way is good. I also have worked with clients where they kind of experience the same thing, but through Kundalini awakening. It's a very intense initiation that is a little uncontrolled. So grounding that through kind of developing these practices is important, but it's also something that happens to people who are still split, which is to say like you're one person at work or with your kids and you're another person in yoga class. Those people need help integrating too. Is it the same kind of emergency as it is for these other people? No, they're not in crisis. Everything feels off. And the integration is actually about knitting together. You know, they use it, a lot of I'm not going to say everyone. Sometimes people in that situation, they live a certain way and they're masking out in their life because they think that's what they have to do. But, you know, you're never going to feel like you've landed. You're always going to feel misunderstood. And also you can start to use your spiritual practice as escapism because you're not going to like your life if it's not actually the real you showing up to do that stuff. And if it's you making decisions based on what other people want and need instead of what your own values are. So this type of like boots on the ground integration work is where most of my clients are, where they're not in crisis, but they have been sitting in that uncomfortable spot for too long and want some support knitting it together. And for me, that's not, I don't have like a prescribed set of practices. That's not how I work. I understand that because we all have different personal cosmology, belief systems, and practices that are effective for us, that every set of lifelong integration practices is bespoke, which is to say that it's individual to you. So it's like even if I made a prescription, it would probably not be right, you know? So the goal is actually to work together to understand where to focus so you can develop your integration practice with what you know, and kind of develop that spaciousness in your consciousness that allows you to see that the spiritual and the physical are one. And gives you the courage to show up in your fullness more and more all the time. Because again, it's not always as easy as like flipping a switch, because sometimes things in your life have to adjust in order for you to be able to show up all the way. But it's how do we get there? What do I need to do? And what are the shifts I want to make to start to show up more and more? Also, it's like, you need to understand what your capacity is. So for example, it's like you don't just dive in the deep end of the pool if you don't know how to swim. You want to take time to get used to the water, to learn how to use your body in this way. You know, so not that it has to be gradual. Everyone talks about how like telling yourself that these things take time is like a narrative that doesn't have to be true. It's not that. It's that our capacity changes as we do our work on ourselves. When you start showing up in a more authentic way and get really grounded in your values and start to push against the boundaries other people hold because of who they think you are, which is different than who you actually are. So you have to kind of like push against that a little bit. You get better at it. Those muscles kind of develop. Those behaviors get stronger. Your sense of yes and no gets better, you know? So it's like we are developing our capacity to hear ourselves, to like check in with our heart, with our gut. It depends who you are. I'm a gut person. So it's like my down here, like literally my stomach, like the whatever neurons are hanging out in there are the ones that give me the sensation that is really where my intuition lies. It's not always heavily like having a conversation. It's more sensational in my body. For other people, it's the heart. The heart really guides them. For other people, they do like hear a voice in their ear. It's different, but that's what I mean. It's different for everyone, but it's getting to know what it is for you so that you're engaging in this process consistently, not in a militant way, like you better be working 24/7, girlfriend. Like it's not that, you know, but it's that you understand that every moment now is an opportunity to do the big work. It doesn't mean you have to say yes all the time. Bandwidth fluctuates day to day. But it's just knowing that you don't have to go sit at the top of the mountain and retreat to access it. You can be changing a diaper and do it.
Yeah, I love that.
I do.
I do. And you're like, it sounds like we are doing the same kind of work. And I don't know, do you use hypnosis to do this as well as, and coaching?
Well, it's funny because I'm like, it depends. It depends on what the client needs, right? Occasionally, I have done integration work with QHHT clients, but they came to me for QHHT first and then want integration support. So that's actually part of my offer now, is that when someone gets a session with me, I just include some integration work with that as part of what we do. Dolores's method really was just like, all right, y'all go on and figure it out. Like when your session's over. But I have found that it can just be really helpful for contextualizing anything confusing that came up to kind of revisit it a little bit. I use transpersonal hypnosis, so this is not specifically QHHT. So if you've done one of Dolores's group regressions, it's not QHHT, but it is transpersonal hypnosis. It's abstract regression. You could call some of it guided meditation. But I do have my own tools that I use with people that are doing integration work, particularly where we get in our own way a lot. So here's some examples of where I do use hypnosis in my integration work. Things that are sticky, like self-acceptance, forgiveness, empowerment, and co-creative capacity. You know, like, are you seeing? Yeah. So it's like anything you've kind of worked with a client on where you see their ego get in the way all the time, where either their self-talk is really bad, or they're holding a grudge or deep with regret, or they're like, I can't possibly do that. I'm not important enough, or I don't have enough credentials, or I'm not smart enough to do this. So it's like all the places where our narratives or the ego really gets in the way are perfect. Those are ripe for hypnosis, because that's exactly what hypnosis is good at, is getting the ego to go lay on the beach in Cabo so we can get our work done, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think you can do that in any other therapy that I know of. How you can just, it's just magic, isn't it?
I mean, I think so. Obviously, I'm biased. Very heavily biased conversation here, isn't it? But it's true. Like, that's what I use my hypnosis for, right? The same, exactly. You just kind of said everything. And I know that my clients listening to this are going to be nodding along going, yep. Because it's just so magical. To be able to rewire those, neural pathways in your brain, that is really, really hard to do on your own, repeating affirmations and catching. Now, obviously, that's all part of it. Like you said, this is the integration work, isn't it? You have to be living it. You don't go up on a cave and meditate. No, you have to be doing it every time you hear that negative voice. You catch it and say, no, I actually am. I'm really confident, or I'm capable, whatever it is. But there's something about hypnosis, and I don't know about you, but I send my clients away with their hypnosis recordings as well, and ask them to play it as they're drifting off to sleep. So it's just like, why would you not fall asleep knowing that you're rewiring your brain to help you, forgive or build self-love, self-worth, and know that you're a co-creator and that anything's possible. And that's where I get really excited. And I think this is going to lead on nicely to my next question, actually. This is where I get really excited with the hypnosis, when I can start playing with the bigger beliefs, the co-creative, the manifestation kind of beliefs, because sometimes you have to get rid of those really base beliefs of the self-worth and the self-love, those kind of things, deal with first. But once you've dealt with them, it's like, right, now we can play.
Right.
Yeah. And so this is where I'd really like to bring back that science and spirituality. So manifesting, it's kind of, it's on trends now, isn't it? But it has that kind of like woo woo, or a lot of people think it's just woo woo. And I think that it doesn't, stuff like The Secret, it was great for when it came out. It was amazing because it was an introduction, but it wasn't the whole story, was it? I think the writers of The Secret even like say that now, the producers of the movie and stuff, but it was like a half of the story. And you can see why people just thought, well, if I just think that I want £1 million and just think it, I'm gonna get it. It's like, oh no. But I'm really fascinated, and what kind of sold me on the manifestation process, amongst other things, was the quantum physics that came behind it, like reading about quantum physics and kind of how getting into the energies and frequencies and stuff. So this is a really big question. I'm trying to like narrow it down, but can you talk on, and maybe you've got a point where you can start, can you speak on how woo-woo manifestation and quantum physics comes together and just ties up so nicely and just makes sense?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the short answer is actually it's not that simple. So it's quite complicated, and it depends on which science you're coming from. So for example, the neuroscience on mindset and being able to transform your life is very solid. And by neuroscience, what I mean is being able to change, well, it's neuroplasticity. It's being able to change the pathways, the neural pathways that your brain uses to basically do things like cure depression, cure addiction, and also to change personality. Like your personality can literally change through things like manifestation techniques and meditation. So that stuff is like physically real and measurable, and there's actually quite a lot of research on that. Where things get hazy is around our use of using quantum physics as kind of a catch-all for what's happening. So first I'm going to, I'm sure everyone who's listening has probably heard this, but I'll just give like a really brief sort of summary. Most of what I hear in our industry is basically saying that what manifestation is you kind of jumping out of, it's this multiverse thing where it's like, this is the version of me that is broke and living in my mom's basement, and I am going to move my consciousness out into the quantum field and select a different timeline or a different me in the multiverse to be the me that doesn't live in my mom's basement. I'm going to pick the me that lives in a mansion in Malibu and is dating Paris Hilton, So, and then people get all upset that it doesn't work. And there is a whole cottage industry of practitioners that are saying, my work, my offer is for people that know all about manifestation, but it's not working. And then there's people like me being like, of course it doesn't work. Like Paris Hilton is raising a child right now. She doesn't want to date you. My take on I'm being cheeky, but like it's coming.
Good point.
It's coming from a place of love. So first I'm going to share my take on manifestation in general, which might ruffle some feathers, but here it is.
Good.
We are manifesting all the time, every single one of us. But what a lot of the messaging is missing is that we are not like the center of the universe by ourselves. We are part of a collective. Our consciousness is collective. The singularity of consciousness is an illusion. And what that means is we are manifesting, not you by yourself. So if the intention you're putting out there is like directly going against someone else's free will, you're probably not going to get it because they have a right to co-create too. We are co-creating, y'all. We are doing it. And what that means is, for on the one hand, when we can work together and collaborate to make something, it's way easier for it to happen because our intentions are aligned. They're not at odds with each other. But if we're all out here saying everybody gets a Ferrari like we're Oprah, we're going to be like, why is it not working? You know what I mean? Because the type of system we live inside of and the types of beliefs we collectively have don't allow for a world where everybody has a Ferrari.
Yes.
You know, so it gets a little tricky. From a quantum physics perspective, though, it's like what the science tells us is actually not quite as woo as how people like to talk about it. So here's an example. Everyone talks about the double slit experiment, which is when you're shooting electrons through two slits and they're sort of randomly distributed more or less. And when you don't observe the electron, what you get on the other side of the slits is a wave pattern. It's an interference pattern, which is telling us that the electron never was a particle. You're getting a wave-like distribution of probability, which is to say the wave function that, well, we could, I mean, if I had a whiteboard, this would be easier to explain.
Yeah.
But what it is like an electron doesn't have to be a physical object. It can be a probability distribution, and it can stay a probability distribution if it doesn't need to be observed. However, if we observe the electron at the slits instead of on the screen behind them, we find they just go into two spots. A bunch are clustered behind one slit and a bunch are clustered behind the other slit. There's no interference pattern at all. It's just two clusters because we observe them at the slit. So a lot of, people in the spiritual well, it's like I keep calling it an industry. Is that bad? In this, yeah. So there are plenty of spiritual people that take that to mean that our observation changes the matter, like it changes how things turn out. But what is missing is that when in physics we're talking about observing the electron, we're not talking about just like thinking about it or looking at it. We're using a detector. So in the physics, we actually are saying when you detect the electron at the slit, this is what happens. But if your detector is on the screen, this is what happens. So what you're doing is making a measurement. And when I was a physics student, this isn't about consciousness. This is about detectors, y'all. So like this is the piece that's missing. When I was a physics student, me and my cohort of students would joke about making a bumper sticker that said, "My dog collapses wave functions," which is to say your dog's eyeball is just as good a detector as your eyeball for quantum particles. So it's the fact of when people talk about the observer, we're actually talking about detection. Mm-hmm. So this is actually separate from consciousness. Mm-hmm. So like that can sound a little disappointing. But that being said, what we're really talking about with manifestation is free will. We're actually talking about free will. And in science and philosophy, I think people are going to debate free will till the cows come home because some people want fate to decide or they want biology to decide. And my personal take, this is opinion, this is not scientific fact in any way. I think free will is fundamental to what we are and what consciousness actually is. It's about being able to make decisions. So when I think about manifestation, I think we can use our intention to create invitations and intentions. Intention is sort of this outward, what are you trying to create? Mm-hmm. And the invitation is, what are you trying to invite in? And an invitation means you're not creating it, you're allowing it.
I love that.
And setting the intention is saying, I'm going to build it. So I think in some ways this maps to the way we talk about masculine and feminine energy, that the intention is a masculine and the invitation is a feminine or something like that. But in the way I live, that has been supportive of my well-being, that has allowed a lot of like love and autonomy and agency in my life, a lot of comfort, really strong relationships, like the things that are important to me has come from balancing these aspects. And do I think quantum mechanics explains how manifestation works? I actually don't. I'm not sure that physical reality, because even quantum mechanics is like this interface between what's physical and what's not, what's probabilistic. I think this goes deeper than that. I think it says more about the nature of consciousness and how physical reality arises from consciousness. And this is something that there are some people studying. There is a retired, well, he was one of my mentors when I was in school. There's an inventor in Silicon Valley named Federico Fagin, who wrote a book on this. I think he's written 2 books now. He has a PhD in physics. He got in Italy, and then he moved to Silicon Valley and invented the microprocessor himself, which is to say we wouldn't have laptops and cell phones without his work. He did that. And guess what he's working on in his retirement is trying to map with the mathematics and the foundation of theoretical physics. He is trying to prove a theory that consciousness is fundamental, not energy. And so it's very interesting to see where that's going and who's working on it. But in a sense, it's like, I'm not here to like break hearts and be like, you don't understand the quantum field, but I also don't want the quantum field to be just used as a bucket and blanket term. Because in some sense, when we talk, so I don't know, it's like I've read some of Joe Dispenza's work where it almost feels like we're fishing. We're like shifting our consciousness into the quantum field and we're trying to fish out the one we want to be. And I don't love that. There's a part of me that's like, just get up and do something about it. You know? Look, it's Dolores speaking through me. Like, come on, just like get off the couch. You know?
I totally agree with you though, because again, I dived into Joe Dispenza, but as soon as it got to doing his implementation with the meditations and stuff, I'm like, this doesn't work for me. This is too like up there. It's something didn't resonate with me as well. And I think that I love like what you've just said there. And this is why I was really excited to have, someone with a scientific background come on and say this, because it's so easy for people who don't know about quantum physics and like mechanics and all of that to start talking about it and repeating what they've heard. Someone like me being included in that as well. And it's like you actually don't know what you're talking about, but then it gets taken away, gets run away with, and people misunderstand it. And what I liked about digging into the quantum physics side of things was that I think it opened up my mind and my consciousness to be able to think, okay, so there's some kind of like factual stuff going on here in terms of energies and the things that I read where I was like, right, okay, that's enough to open up my mind to dive more into the kind of woo-woo stuff, because otherwise I was just like, I don't want to hear about that. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's nonsense. But it actually, the science led me to be able to dive deeper into the spirituality. And the more I'm kind of moving along in my journey, the more I'm trying to let go of needing hardcore facts all the time and more dig in and trust my intuition, because that's kind of part of what I feel here with my mission is to help people remember who we are, these kind of beings who are much greater than what we see here and in this particular lifetime now. And I used to want to know everything. I wanted to know all the facts. I wanted to understand it all. And I realized how closed-minded it made me. Now I don't need to know. I don't need to have all the facts. I'm actually really comfortable with not knowing and just being open as I can. And so that's what I'm always trying to do, because I love knowledge and I love information, and I'm trying to get it from everywhere, from a whole round of like sources, and then bring it together, because I like patterns and I like kind of putting the patterns together and thinking, that kind of stacks up, that makes sense there, that makes sense there. But ultimately I'll always then run it through my kind of internal GPS and think, does that feel right to me in my gut? Yes, it does. Does that? No, it doesn't. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be right for me later on. But I'm just going to pop that to the side and move on. And like you said, with what you've done, everything that's important to you, you know, with your relationships, it's all made it better. The same for me. Like, living like this has made everything in my life better, and has actually driven me to make things happen, because I feel like I can now. And I think that's what it comes down to, like forgetting all about how manifestation works and the science for it to back it up. I have actively experimented with it, and I've seen that whatever's going on behind the scenes, it works.
It works. Yes.
He does all that and teaches everybody else, including me.
Well, there are a couple things about what you said that I absolutely love. And I also want to reflect back to you. So Isaac Newton, who was like the father of physics, wasn't just a brilliant physicist and mathematician. He was an alchemist. He was in active study of magic and alchemy, because a couple hundred years ago, they were not different pursuits.
Right.
And so I hope we can all kind of remember that the questions we have about reality and the universe are the same. The questions we're asking in physics and the questions we're asking in spirituality are the same. And the one place where science will always fail us is that it can learn a lot about how things work, but it can never tell us what it means. And that's why philosophy and spirituality and even religion can be very important for us, because it helps imbue our experiences with meaning. And so, like, that's something that science will never give us.
Yeah.
Right. But I became a physicist and then an astrophysicist because I wanted the answers too, just like you did. I wanted all the answers. And I thought to myself, well, who will know better what all this is than these people? And then I got to grad school and discovered where the edges of our knowledge are. And many of those edges are like actual physical properties of the universe. It's not that we don't have a good enough detector. It's that there are limits to what we can know, when the only way we can know it is through measurement. Science learns things through measurement. And some aspects and qualities and properties of the universe cannot be measured in some degree, because we're in it and we're made of it. So that limit is a real limit. And when I found that, it broke my heart to realize that there are truly unknowable things. So no matter what hardcore materialists will tell you, they don't know. Like, there are limits to what we can know.
Yeah.
And so my journey from that point and from that heartbreak onward, I still love learning. I want to learn as much as I can. But another piece of my work has been learning how to embrace mystery. And how, you know, because that could feel so uncomfortable, right? But it's like, can I learn how to sit comfortably and in compassion with myself in the face of the unknown? Has been a continuous part of my work. So in that way, you and I are the same. And it doesn't matter if I have an astrophysics PhD, that journey is the same journey of like trying to get all the answers and spread all the good news and make sure people know what's up, and then returning to the mystery after all of it and saying like, I know it. Well, I mean, there's like Greek philosophers too. Like, I know nothing. Here I am with it. I got a PhD in astrophysics and I still know nothing, right? There's just so much out there. So I just want to say I have an appreciation for that. And what your goal is, I think, is what we share, which is how do we help guide each other to freedom?
Yeah.
You know, and so when it comes to the how, it doesn't matter as much as whether these practices are effective or not, which is what you learned, right? Which is that it's like none of us can say the things that we can't measure with detectors, we may never know how while we're still in a body. That doesn't mean we should throw it away.
Yeah.
It just means we need to use empirical evidence, or even like social sciences, right? Like case studies, taking notes and being like, I did this and the result was this. That's what I'm saying. Like doing it that way instead of expecting to use a particle accelerator to find the answer. You see what I'm saying? It's just different tools. But it's finding ways to prove to ourselves what is going to improve our experience here, what is going to help us have a more loving presence here. Some people feel called to guide others on this journey and others don't. Everybody's different. But the goal is the same. We're all trying to hold hands with each other on the way to freedom if we can just figure out that is what we want collectively.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Rosa. That's awesome. This has been such a fascinating chat, hasn't it?
Oh, it's just so much. My head is up. I know she's thinking, oh, poor Beck. She's. I will go and process all this.
Yeah. I think again, like, well, it's perfect, isn't it? I just feel like this is really grounded.
Yeah.
I think it's grounded kind of what we talk about here. And it's okay, like, to have them both sit side by side. It's good to have both of them, and you don't have to be on one team or the other. It's just like come back to what feels right to you. And I personally just think have as open a mind as possible, like just get all the information you can in a way that works for you and suits you, and then run it through your your intuition, and just to take it step by step. We're all learning, and I find as well, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know anything.
Yeah. Well, and just stay flexible, right? Like I don't have a concrete worldview or even metaphysical view, because every time I learn more, it changes anyway. So I think being open is so important, because it just helps us shift and understand what we're actually embedded in here in new ways, and in ways that serve us better as time goes on. So at the end of the day, like that's what it really is. Anytime we get calcified in a belief system, we're going to run up against the edges of that. So I just try to stay fluid.
Yes, that's exactly. That's so funny, because I literally said that. Like on a podcast I was on the other day, I like to keep my beliefs as fluid as possible, because then you're never going to get like it's much more comfortable to have fluid beliefs, isn't it? And actually it's just much more magical, and there's much more wonder in your life when you can have fluid beliefs. But also coming back to kind of that bigger mission as well, I think the more fluid you can be in your beliefs, the more compassionate you can be for other people and their beliefs as well. And I think we all know we need more of that in the world right now. And so I think that that's just a wonderful thing, to be able to have like fluid beliefs, and also realize, like you said, you actually have a fluid identity as well. Like just you can change every day. You're not going to be the same person you are next week than you are this week, or in a month's time, a year's time, and embrace that as well, because the journey gets to be more fun when you do it that way. I think.
True. Yeah. Well, it's like we would never like malign a tree for looking different in 1 year than it did 3 years ago, right? So as we're all growing and as we're all learning, that's just I think that's a natural byproduct of that. And that I mean, I had a lot of conversations about this with my husband before we got married, about the fact that we were going to change. And something that I had seen a lot in previous relationships is that I had spent a lot of time with guys whose like main expectation was that I would never change. And I'm like, man, y'all are with the wrong person. But that has been a big part of it, in that I'm not talking about I'm really talking about being on the journey, and the fact that like that is okay, especially if what you're seeing is evolution. We are continuously evolving as individuals, and being open to that and understanding that adjustment is necessary and rebalancing is necessary, particularly in a like linked relationship like family. It can be making adjustments around who we are becoming and what we are learning is a natural part of the process, not something to be concerned about.
Yeah.
And so like having that understanding has been really helpful. In fact, one of the things that drew me to him was that I could see when I met him that he was on the journey. Like, did we each have our act together yet? No, but we were getting close and we were both engaging in it, like in our own way. And it's like, I think just that by itself was enough for me because we were deeply compatible anyway. But the fact that like we were all in process showed me that this could really work, you know? And it's been amazing since that time because it's like, even if we have had so many moments where we've been really grateful for what we've been able to achieve or what our life looks like. And then we just keep getting more of that. You know, and I think that's what this kind of boils down to is using the things we've been discussing in the way that we live and in the way we look at our life every day. So in a sense, it's like, you know, you've landed if you can sit in gratitude for the moment you're in right now. And if you are getting a lot of that, you're pretty tapped in, especially if you can stay nimble. Because again, like life comes at you fast. Like, you know, you always have to be ready. We find that when we're getting really comfortable and we're like, this is great. It's like the next week something will come up to be like, no, you know, y'all are still here. We still got some challenges and some growth to do. And like we can kind of take that. But it's been really nice to be able to see once you do a lot of house cleaning, like get your internal house in order, and then understand your personal practice, whatever that is. Like for me, I don't meditate anymore. You know, I do dance, and for me, dance is kind of my practice right now. I think that's happening with a lot of people. I had like a big moment with that earlier this year, and when I just said yes to it, it has supported me in so many ways, especially as like an academic and an intellectual. Doing something that brings the focus into my body has been really powerful for me. But it's like saying yes to the things that bring it all home every day, ends up like generating a life. It's like, would I have envisioned this, you know, 10 years ago or something? I had no idea I would be in the house that I'm in, doing the work that I'm doing. It's like, you don't see where it's going, but that's that embrace the mystery part where I have this sense that if I do my part, if I'm like contributing and showing up and bringing awareness into the present moment and loving as much as I can, it's like it all kind of does what it needs to do to support and to hold me. And I don't need to like do a vision board or like picture what it should look like because I couldn't have cooked up the beauty of this, or like I couldn't have cooked up the comfort of this. Like the delight I take in it, part of it comes from the fact that I didn't cook it up. So it gets to be a surprise, or it gets to be like I get to feel lucky about it, right? Because it's not, I do love like sort of the work of my hands, like making something myself or achieving something myself too. If you don't like that, you'll never get a PhD. Like you got to put the time in. But now it's like my life is going in this other direction, which is saying I did the sort of work of my hands, sweat of my brow thing so I could learn about grit and persistence. And I did 10 times over. But now I get to do the other thing where it's more about like showing up, and it's the invitation. It's about me saying, I'm happy to do my part. I'm happy to serve in accordance with my spiritual function. And then just welcoming how that kind of takes shape.
I love that. And I feel like we've kind of got to that point now, haven't we? Because I feel like there's like a journey, and I don't know whether you had it, but it's like you dive into the world of manifestation, you're like, oh, I have this kind of power, like what? Oh, I'm going to create this and this and this, and then you do that for a bit, and then you're like, I know I found I don't want anything anymore. Like I'm just happy to like be surprised, just like you. So like I feel like you get to that point after a little while, and it comes back to what you said earlier about the collective creation when we're not on our own. And I think that when you get that, and I don't mean you just know it, when you like embody it, that you are in a collective, it's that, and it's a whole spiritual shift as well. Then you can say, do you know what? I'd like to have this. You can have things you like and you want. Of course you can, and you need to. You want to have desires. But you're like, as long as I'm happy and as long as everyone else is getting served and it's the best for all of us, give me that. Like whatever that is, just give me that. And I think, like you said, you know, that's when things kind of just happen for you. If you can have that really open, like I want to be happy, but I want it to be for the highest good of everybody else, and I want it to kind of us all to be a community, like working together. I want it to serve other people as well as serve me, because that there's a problem with a lot of people don't think that they can be served as well. It works.
It's like they're part of it too. They are one part of us, right?
Yeah.
So like can't exclude yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's it. And I think once you can get that, and it takes internal work, like, you know, like the work that you're doing with people, the work I'm doing with people, to get to a point where you can do that. And then that helps you have the kind of the compassion and the understanding that we are all one. That then I think you're in a real sweet spot for just creating something really beautiful in your life, and you don't have to know what that is, and let the universe or whatever you want to call it surprise you. But when you're coming from love, like you said, I don't think you can go wrong. I think that's the key.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm like, that's my 5D. What you just described.
Yeah. Mine too.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, okay. So before we wrap this up then, I was just thinking, we have a lot of people in the audience, going back to what you said before with the type of people you work with, who are kind of straddling these two worlds. They're this person here, they're this person there. What would be your kind of like biggest piece of advice for them to help them start integrating now? What can they do right now? What first steps can they take to start integrating that?
Yeah, so I have like very clear advice for this because of my own journey, but also a few of my clients. I'll just give a short anecdote. I had a client who is an Ivy League professor, and she had her spiritual awakening more or less at a music festival. So y'all get the picture. And but, you know, after kind of working through the questions like, what is real? Is this real? Like, what is, you know, reality type of stuff? A lot of the downloads she was getting were centered around love and spiritual, like full spiritual expression and things like that. And she was concerned that she was going to have to abandon her academic career in order to live in alignment with her newfound knowledge, which is a big deal for someone, as I would say, with as much clout as she has. And we did a session. We did a QHHT session, actually, and to get some of those deeper answers, which I love because it comes from her. It doesn't come from me, and that makes life easier, right? So this is advice straight from the SC. This is not from Rosa Hope, PhD. This is straight from the SC. What she found out was that there was no need to change her career at all. What she needed to do was show up in her career the right way, which is to say, bring love, bring compassion, bring equanimity, bring the focus on freedom to the way you do your work, which career work, right? And so there's something really juicy inside of there. And it actually goes back to something Ram Dass used to say, which is like, you can be a garbage man and still shine light in the world. You can still guide people to freedom no matter where you're at. And so if you are afraid of showing up in your fullness in the community that you're in, and in the let's say in the career that you're in, the truth is that sometimes change is called for, but less often than you would think. So I would say have courage and try to set the fear of condemnation or rejection aside, because you might be surprised that when you show up or start to show up in your fullness, in this loving way, in this way that is illuminating and shining light around you. And I'm not talking about like preaching the gospel to people, like don't, like be a living example. Be a living example of what you know, keeping in touch with spirit, with source, with peace, being a lighthouse of love shining out on the people around you. Just show up like that in whatever you're already doing and just see what happens. You may be surprised that the people around you may give a sigh of relief, like, oh my gosh, I can finally relax, or like they feel much more comfortable around you. People might start to share their inner thoughts and feelings and downloads with you. It becomes an invitation for the people that are on the level that have also been afraid to show up.
Thank you.
Perfect. Wow,
Thank you.
you've given me you put it so beautifully, Rosa, and I've just got some buzzing now. I've got so much to think about.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. And you've just articulated there what I always say is that I feel is like it's my war cry. That what you've just said is my war cry, isn't it? But that's kind of my overarching mission when I'm doing the work that I'm doing with the people that I'm doing. Effectively, though there's lots of intricacies in it, I am literally just looking at them and thinking, I need you to go out there and shine your light and just be unapologetically you, so that you can go on and switch on somebody else and they can switch on. And again, comes back to this collective, doesn't it? When that happens, this is when, as Dolores would say, we step into that earth split. Like that's when the new earth is like born, I think.
Right.
Like, that's what we need people to do. So I feel like she's pushing me as well, going, come on, we need to get these so we could get to the new earth. But Rosa, thank you so much. Can you just let everybody know where they can find you? And I think you've got something that you'd like to share with them as well.
Totally. Yeah, happy to. So I'm the most active on Instagram. My handle is It's Rosa Hope. So feel free to get in touch with me and find me there. I also have a website where you can learn about everything I offer at rosa-hope.com. And I want to invite you all. I am running an online regression workshop on December 6th, which you can find again through my Instagram or through my website. It is a pay what you wish. I think like Stripe does have like a 50-cent minimum or something. So I'm not trying to hustle you with your 50 cents. That's not me, but I would love to see you there. It is going to be live. So yeah, I would be delighted to share some of this incredible work and to help people, especially here close to the end of the year, to be able to get a little support and insight and perspective to support you in 2026. So.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And you said as well, it's going to be compatible with UK time as well, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. Amazing. And where can people find out about that? Will that be on your website or on your Instagram?
Oh yeah, it's going to be on blast. You won't miss it. Yeah.
Amazing. That's awesome. And we will put all of Rosa's details obviously in the show notes as well. So don't rewind it and write it all down. It's going to be there for you. Rosa, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been wonderful to speak to you.
Wonderful.
Thank
you. My head's, I know, I just love it. My heart's like, thank you.
No, I love you too. I've been listening to your backlog and y'all are such a delight. I'm so blessed. Thank you for having me. It's been really great to spend some time with you too.
Oh, thanks, Rosa. Same right back at you. Right, guys? Well, that's it for another episode. We will see you next time. Take care, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.